Good afternoon, guys. Just coming up to 5 o'clock, so I'm just going to have a quick look at the market reactions from today and have a quick look over the calendar for tomorrow ahead of non-farm payrolls. Today was all about ECB, the release coming out at 12:45 that you can see here on the chart, and then the press conference at 1:30, so we'll have a quick look over that, the key comments that came from the release, and talk through the moves that happened in the euro, the DAX and the Bund, and have a quick look elsewhere at US equities and oil and gold, etc. So with the release at 12:45, and very much the case, what you'll find on days like this and for tomorrow is the morning can be quite subdued and range bound as people are really waiting for the key event of the day. So with tomorrow with non-farm payrolls at 1:30, I very much expect the morning to be quite slow, range bound, choppy as well, and that pretty much was the case today. At 12:45 you can see here, well, the initial reaction was to the upside, so the euro pushed higher on the dropping of the phrase indicating that the pace of QE could be increased if required. So they removed that from the January meeting, and that allowed the euro to push higher, and you can see here just on this 5-minute time frame, let me just remove that out of the way. You can see we got a test of what was the higher level underneath the pivot, and broke through there as well. Half decent opportunity on the pullback to previous level, and it was a Fibonacci as well. That sort of offered an area of support for the push higher, and as you then get that sort of initial 1, 2, 3, 5-minute move following the sort of statement that comes out at quarter to 1, and then it goes sideways in anticipation of what Mario Draghi is going to say at 1:30. So I'll just have a quick look over to the DAX as well. So with that pushing higher, the DAX did come under a bit of pressure off that hawkish move, and we did test the low of the day. The Bund, as you can see here, pretty much tested the low of, well, it did make a new low. Having come through the press conference, price started to reverse a bit. There's a decent trend line on here that you can see we broke through, which from a technical point of view offered a decent level of resistance. However, then we start to reverse the move completely around sort of 149. You can see here, I've got it written down, move started pushing lower on Draghi saying there wasn't much discussion on other policy shifts, so sort of almost taking away that statement, reversing that, and we came down quite sharply. You can see in the euro here there were further comments on the trade war, that asset buying will perhaps be continued past the September date. So the trade wars, as I mentioned, and then worries about inflation, saying the battle is not won just yet. Further to that, and again, well, this is before we go on to the dollar index, you also had another good opportunity, and it was a case similar to what we've marked up here, just breaks of these technical levels, just really offering a good level. And I remember speaking to a couple of the guys in-house about, let's just get that one there, been respected quite well. When these levels go, that's when you get the further move, and it was a case of being patient on a lot of these moves. I'm just going to remove them out of the way just to clear things up. So as we were pushing lower, dollar index was pushing above 90, and we're sitting now at about 90.1, so comfortably above, and we'll go through the other currencies shortly, but as you can imagine, a lot of those are near their lows against the dollar. As euro was coming down under pressure, the DAX, you can see here, really rose quite sharply, a lot quicker than it had come down initially for that hawkish 12:45 release. So the euro, weaker euro helping the DAX, and as you see here, allowing the DAX to break that key level, the one that we've been talking about in the briefing over the last couple of days. Got it marked up here. You can see just how strong this area of resistance, previous support, had been once, twice, and this, bear in mind, these are 240-minute candles, and then it turned to resistance once, twice, and then quite a few times over the last couple of days. I'm going to lower the time frame down now, and you see there really nice breakthrough, and we're just below R1. However, we did initially break through that. With the DAX pushing higher and euro lower, the Bund as well pushing on with the more sort of dovishly received press conference, and you can see here similar sort of time when all that was going on, the Bund really pushing on. And in terms of levels for the Bund, we're just coming up to what could be a key resistance here that we found on the sort of the afternoon back on the 5th. So I'll be keeping an eye on that for anyone still sticking around trading the Bund. It is a pretty key level. As mentioned, and let's have a quick look over the other currency pairs. The dollar index pushing above 90, strengthening, and you can see here the pound back on its low. So the dollar strength perhaps more than anything to do really with the pound. Obviously the euro weakness as well would help, and you can see here the euro pound on its low. So a bit of pound strength against the euro, but nothing really to do with the pound today. Aussie dollar, a couple of people were looking at the long this morning around the S1 level, and if we lower the time frame down, you can see the first sort of test of that area offered was quite well respected with the previous lows before breaking through and offering an area of resistance once, and now we're coming back to, it might get a bit messy around there. Having a look over at US equity, so with the DAX pushing higher, it did help. Let me just put this on a 15-minute chart. American equities push on, and you can see it. Well, obviously after the cash open, it got quite choppy, but the dovish press conference, equities pushed on to new highs for the day. The Dow Jones quite similar, putting on through here. So this was when the DAX was pushing on. Remember, 149. This is a 15-minute candle. You got that pop through, and then, like I said, cash open, it got quite messy. Same for the Nasdaq, and we mentioned in the briefing this morning that it had been outperforming slightly the S&P and the Dow Jones, and that still very much is the case. So we're not too far away from the high of the day for the Nasdaq, which is the highest we've been for some time. And you can see just how important this key level of resistance is, and perhaps a bit more importantly, what was the low of the 27th. So I'll be keeping an eye on that. In terms of where we could go if we do break that, you know, people again will start talking about that all-time high, and unbelievable to think. Let's just find out the exact percentage we are away from that all-time high. I mean, roughly anyway. Yeah, just over 1%. Incredible. After what happened at the beginning of February. Oil, so we saw yesterday oil with the DOE release, initial push to the upside, pivot acted as strong resistance, and then we dropped about $2. A decent opportunity came today, admittedly helped by the stronger dollar. When we did break through the low marked here, you can see we then came back to retest it as an area of resistance, and since then it's dropped quite nicely through S1, and now again getting a bit messy as is the case coming into sort of the end of the day here in Europe and lunchtime over in the States. So as mentioned, today was very much a case of the ECB initial move to the upside. Just to clarify what we went through on dropping the phrase of indicating that the pace of QE could be increased if required. So that was removed. So understandably a push to the upside on a hawkish reaction. However, Draghi basically took that back, saying there wasn't much discussion on other policies, a bit of worry about the trade wars, and the dollar index also strengthening quite a lot there. Having a quick look over at the calendar for tomorrow. Let's just transition the chart there. I'll just zoom in to make it a bit clearer. You've got a bit of UK data in the morning, 9:30. So for anyone interested in that, I'd probably be staying away until the build up around sort of 9:20, 9:30 before thinking about getting involved in any pound related products. Non-farm payrolls 130, expected to be 200,000. Obviously be paying some interest to what the revision for the previous month was. Focus, I think, again, and understandably so, is going to be on the average earnings, both the monthly figure and yearly figure. Expected month on month 0.2, the year on year 2.8. So we'd be looking for decent beats of that. However, the range, as you can see, for both of them is quite big. So ideally, you're going to want to see a break above that range. If we do, then you might start to see equities come under a bit of pressure and the dollar continue to strengthen, and T-notes fall down as well with gold. So I'll be focusing not purely, that's the wrong wording, mostly on the average earnings. The non-farm payrolls release, the jobs number perhaps will take the first initial reaction. I'd wait and take into account everything, including the unemployment rate, which has been so consistent for a number of years. As mentioned earlier, I would say the morning is likely to be quite quiet in anticipation for the jobs numbers at 1:30, other than the UK releases. Anyone who's still in the trading live, please do feel free to ask any questions, or even if it's just watching it later on YouTube. But if not, I hope you have a good evening, and I'll catch you all tomorrow.